Sources, 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 the bread and butter of family history work. Today we're going to provide some hints on finding sources and how to attach them and document them in your family history research. Stay tuned. Good sources are the key to solid genealogy research. They are the records that provide the information about your ancestors. We're talking about birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, census records. There's all types of things that can be sources. Various types of sources and their locations are the stuff of conferences. We could go on and on and on about various places where you can get information that can give you clues about your ancestors. Finding good sources and documenting them is essential, and it's a mistake that many beginning genealogists make. They don't write down or notate where they got the information that they have. They think they're not going to forget, but trust me, you will. Don't feel bad. Most of us have done it, especially as we were beginning our genealogy research. I still have some things that I am not positive where I got that information, which is terrible to admit, but it's the truth. So let me give you some clues on how you can go about documenting your sources for your family history research. Today, I'm going to focus on just 3 things regarding sources. The first is how to document the source. What makes up a source citation? The second is how to deal with those things that you get when you begin your genealogy research, the oral histories from your family, birth certificates or marriage records, as well as family trees that perhaps somebody in your family has created. And finally, we'll talk about the hints that you'll get on programs such as Ancestry.com or on FamilySearch.org. Any of those large platforms will be providing you hints. You've probably seen the commercial from Ancestry.com where you see a shaking leaf, and that shows maybe a census record or something like that. That's what we're going to talk about today. Elizabeth Shown Mills has written what many genealogists consider the Bible of sources in genealogy research. Her book is entitled Evidence Explained, Citing History Sources from Artifacts to Cyberspace. It's a great book. I recommend that you take a look at it. Thomas W. Jones has also published a number of books on genealogy research, one of them about documenting the sources that you come across as you perform your genealogy research. I'd like to point out that he noted, quote, "This idea that there is one way to cite a source is false," unquote. And I'd like to emphasize that. If you're writing a genealogical paper, you are going to have to follow a particular standard of how you're going to list your sources. But for our general research, the most important thing is that you get the information in there. So, what is that important information? The old adage, who, what, when, and where applies. So first, who? Who is cited in this source? Who is the source about? What's the name on the birth certificate or the death certificate? Who are the names on the marriage certificate? What? What is the record? Is it a family Bible? Is it a birth certificate? Is it a census record? You want to explain what the source is. And then you want to talk about when it was. You want to be sure that you include the date. When was the source created? And finally, where. And in this case, where is kind of a 2-part thing. The first is where in, and the second is where from. And what I mean by that is where in, for instance, if you have a book, what page is your information coming from within that book? Where from is what repository holds that source, such as a family Bible in my possession, or a book that was obtained from the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Utah. That's the type of information that you want to include. And the reason that you want all of this information in there is so that if you need to, you can find the source again. So let's discuss family information and documents. These will be the things that usually you begin your genealogy research with. How do you compile that initial information? And oftentimes you're beginning your family history with information that your family has told you, and that's okay. Sometimes you might have an old family Bible. That's okay too. But it'll be important in this beginning time, if at all possible, to just kind of write down where that came from. The method of attaching this source to your family tree really depends on the program that you're using. If you're writing things by hand, if you're using a genealogy program that you hold on your computer, or if you're using a website such as Ancestry.com to build a family tree. Each of these sites is a little bit different, and maybe in upcoming videos I can explain better how to particularly do it in one program. But I'm going to be a little bit general here in this video just to give you a taste of what you can and should do. Let me give you an example from my family. My mother, not long ago, gave me a large Bible. It was from her mother's side of the family. It's the Harris Family Bible. Within the Bible, which is very common, there were pages to note births, deaths, and marriages. So I scanned those pages and I attached them to my individuals. There is a place within the Ancestry program to write out in a very formal format a source. But I want to show you a couple things that I did that are just kind of quick and easy so that it doesn't take as much time and you're more likely to do it. I just made a notation in the comments area under the birth that information came from our family Bible. And then I attached as an image in the gallery a picture of that Bible. Now there's something important that I did when I attached that picture. I noted where that information was, that the Bible was within my family's possession. Because this Bible was multiple pages, I scanned it as a PDF. One of the other pages of this, which was the page of births. And I've circled two of the images in that page. One was William O. Harris, who was the father of Robert D. Harris. And you'll see that, and they're kind of covered with these circles, but William O. Harris was listed first, and it said who his parents were. And then underneath him is his wife, and it says the wife of W. O. Harris. And then it names their children, one of them being Robert D. Harris, who was my ancestor. Other pages in the Bible then listed him as Thomas D. Harris rather than Robert D. Harris. Because I put this image up on Ancestry.com and not long afterwards received an email response from another Ancestry user. She was related to William O. Harris, and she had faithfully researched all of his children, but she'd been able to find nothing about Robert D. Harris. When she saw the family Bible, she realized that Robert D. Harris had changed his name to Thomas D. Harris, who was my ancestor, and that helped her create her complete family tree. So as you come across these tidbits of information, particularly things like family Bibles, be sure to share them with other people because they will greatly appreciate the kindness that you show as you share the records that you have in your family. Oral histories can come in lots of different formats. Perhaps you video recorded an interview that you've had with your family member, or perhaps it's information that's been taken from a conversation. Maybe you have an audio recording. On a lot of these programs, you can upload a video or audio recording if you choose to, but either way, make sure you write out the information in the recording and save that. And then you can make a notation in your tree that information came from your interview with so-and-so on such and such date. Another thing to keep in mind about oral histories is they're not always correct. Sometimes as time passes, people's memories become a little fuzzy. The other thing that can happen in oral histories is that something came about sometime, somebody said something and it was latched onto, or it's a case of that game of telephone where somebody said something and then it's repeated over and over or for generations and generations and the story changes over time. So be careful with oral histories that you don't believe it to be the gospel truth, because it may not be. It may be a portion of the truth, and it can send you in the right direction, but it may not be correct. I see that a lot with people that are told that they have Native American heritage, or that perhaps they're related to somebody that's famous. So we even have that in my family. My maiden name is Stevenson, and I was told through my family that we were related to Robert Louis Stevenson. We have yet to be able to prove that connection. So now let's talk a little bit about computer-generated hints. Computer-generated hints are wonderful. In another video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to evaluate whether a hint is truly for your ancestor or not. But what I'd like to discuss in this video is how to attach those hints to your family members. I'm going to use Ancestry as my example because I think Ancestry.com is one of the more user-friendly platforms, particularly for beginners. When you are examining a hint through a program like Ancestry.com or FamilySearch.org, you have the opportunity to look over the record that they're showing you, whether it be a census record or a birth record or something like that. After you've confirmed that it does belong to your family members, you have the opportunity to attach that source to your family member. This is where I see a lot of people drop the ball. It's really quite easy nowadays to attach these sources, but I frequently find people that have not done so, which is really sad to not use the technology that's available to you. So let me show you an example of how you can attach a hint on Ancestry.com. Here's a blow-up of the 1850 census record where I find my third great-grandfather, William O. Harris, with his family and children, including my second great-grandfather, who I know as Thomas Harris, but in this record went by Robert. I've looked over this record and I've compared it with other sources, and I know that this record belongs to my ancestor. So I'm going to show you how it looks when it's been attached into the tree, and then in a moment I'm going to show you the process of attaching a record. Now here's the record as I found it in Ancestry.com. Note that he was indexed as William Haynes rather than William Harris, but if you take a look at the writing on the actual document, it's Harris. So I'm going to click on the Save button, and I'm going to save this to William O. Harris. Now I have two columns. The left side is the record, the information in the record, and the right side is my ancestor and the information that I have on my ancestor. You select which of these boxes that you want to include into your tree. So as you can see, there's a check mark by residence in 1850, and it says that he was a resident of Jackson, Franklin County, Ohio. Now his birth information is actually less specific than the information that I had obtained from the family Bible. So I don't want to check that box because it will replace the better information that I have in my tree. Once I've selected the information that I want to, I can save to my tree. Now we get to the part that I really like the most. After the record's been attached to William O. Harris and to his son Thomas and his other family members, when I click on that record, highlighting it in purple, it shows all of the different things that it is pertaining to. For instance, you see the little line going to the name William O. Harris. You see his birth because that record pertained to his birth. You also see that this record does pertain to the family members. Now, if I scroll down further on the page, you will see that it does not pertain to some of the other family members because they weren't born yet. And you can see the line going down to the residence in 1850. So I know that that residence information came from that source. Now, the other holds true in reverse. If I want to click on an event, such as his birth, it will show me the records that I have that have provided the information for his birth. I hope this has stressed the importance of sourcing your genealogical information as you gather it and provided some hints for you in how to attach it to your family tree. Please don't hesitate to ask questions in the comments section, and I'll either address them there or in a future video. I hope you have a great day.